Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 7. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank those of you who have liked, shared, commented, and subscribed to the show. Your support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. And I'm extremely excited. In this week's episode, I'm joined by one of my mentors and Iron Hoya legend, Michael Hill. Coach Hill is currently the Associate Athletic Director of Sports Performance at Georgetown University. He works primarily with the men's basketball program and oversees the development of all 29 sports at the Hilltop. Going into his 17th season, Coach Hill has been the director for 10 of those years. And during his career, he's worked with multiple NBA draft picks, legendary coaches, and highly successful programs. Additionally, he is a board member for the National Academy of Sports Medicine. He's a master strength and conditioning coach through the CSCCa and was named one of the top 4 collegiate strength coaches in the country by the NSCA in 2014. I'm really excited to have him on the show today. So with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Michael Hill. All right, what's going on, everybody? I'm here with my former and still always ever mentor, my next vote for the next 007, if they ever make an American version. Michael Hill. He is the Associate Athletic Director of Sports Performance at Georgetown University, working primarily with men's basketball, but overseeing the department. Going into his 17th season here as a Hoya. What's going on?
Hello, Nick. Thanks for having me. It's definitely an honor, so thank you.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. Like I said, I learned a lot from you in my time as a Hoya, and I still continue to lean on you for a lot of stuff, and I'm really honored to have you on today. Hey, so we're going to get right into it. I know a little bit about your background, but for the audience and everything, what really got you started in the strength game? Like what kind of got you infatuated with lifting, and what sports did you kind of play growing up?
Yeah, so I guess I was always I'm from a small town in Iowa, Fort Dodge, Iowa, and so I was always playing outside, and running around the woods, guns, whatever, toy guns, running around, shooting, making forts, all that stuff. And naturally, as you get older, you start playing sports and organized sports outside and with the seasons, and so that kind of is my first introduction to sports. Then it wasn't one particular thing, but I do remember right around Rocky IV, right? And the training montage, I think that inspired a whole, generation of strength coaches and other professions probably. But for me, I was like, wow, this guy's training hard to get to this fight. Like that's kind of my first, real intro to that. And so what I did was I cut literally a piece of rope, because I didn't have a jump rope. I cut a piece of rope, folded it over, and then I taped 2 pieces of duct tape so I could hold on to the rope. So it was a circle. And, I would jump rope in my garage. And so that was my first piece of equipment. I still actually have that at my house in Fort Dodge. And so I just fell in love with it organically, naturally, in 6th grade. I ended up going to a program that was for young kids, for 6th graders and 7th graders, and you could go and lift in the morning time before school. So we would get up super early. We would go there. We would lift, and then we'd eat breakfast and go to school. So that kind of forged me into kind of the normal strength coaches. They try and get up before everybody else, right? And so that was taught by Mr. Bristol. And so he was a former military man, and he kind of instilled that work ethic in me. And then it just grew from 6th grade to 7th grade to training. And I like training better than sports, because to be honest with you, I wasn't good at sports. So I tried to train my face off And, it was more than the 3A workout, right? So the arms, abs, and aerobic activity, I was trying to do whatever I could and gobble up whatever type of training. Didn't matter what it was, whether it was, jumping rope, whether it was lifting weights, whether it was push-ups, whether it was running miles, whether it was sprinting hills, carrying stuff. I also had my parents, we had a farm. So, I had to go work on that farm. So, but that's kind of, I guess, in a nutshell, the short, long version of how I got this started.
That's awesome. I didn't know that you had that program in 6th grade, but I mean, it's not surprising that Iowa would be kind of doing the right things.
Yeah. I pretty much tried every sport. I mean, I grew up on a lake and so we had, I was skiing, I was riding wave runners, dirt bikes, later on surfing, boxing, all that stuff amongst track, football, baseball, basketball, and so I was kind of good at everything, but not great at anything. Right. So it wasn't one avenue. So it was more towards all of that. The training was the one equilibrium to all of that. Right. So.
Right. Yeah. And you talked about it, like you got infatuated with the training and the process and in the work ethic and getting up early and all the things that kind of are involved in sport performance, athletic development, all those things. Kind of touching on that and your inspiration, what led you to kind of a coaching career? I know you've touched on it a lot. Your transition from moving to California to your extensive time at Georgetown, but what was your initial start into the profession? And then what led you to now being at the collegiate level?
Mm-hmm. So as you said, I moved to California, and Mr. Daraje Salam, he hired me on at 24 Hour Fitness. And then later on, I had another mentor, Mallory Gaston, who helped me out. But I was a personal trainer, which I think, to be honest, it really helped me become a better strength coach because I had to learn to wear many different hats and I was writing many different programs, even though you'd look back then and I had no idea what I was doing. Right. But these people trusted me with their money and really, I just showed them CPR, which is care, passion, and respect. Right. I just showed them that and didn't matter what I was doing. But my transition into becoming a strength coach happened from the assistant strength coach of the Oakland Raiders. His name is Chris Pearson. And it was he sat me down and was like, this is what you need to do to become a strength coach in this profession. He was also an Iowa guy. He's from Waterloo, Iowa. And so he sat me down and said, these are the things that you need to be doing. You need to be researching every single injury so you know how to prevent it, so you know how to rehab it. And he gave me his pointers, and the direction he pointed me into was the NSCA. And so I first got certified through the National Academy of Sports Medicine, which I now sit on their board. But then he pushed me to the NSCA, and so I took that exam. And once I took that exam, it kind of validated me for myself. Like, hey, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can be, a strength coach in this game. And to be honest, I was shooting for the stars. I thought I was going to go be an NFL, strength coach at 185 pounds. And it just, collegiate basketball was one thing that I was very passionate about. Growing up in Iowa, you're either Iowa State, Northern Iowa fan, and I was a Iowa State fan. And so it was like, do I want to go back to Iowa State and try and go that avenue? However, the tie into Georgetown is my parents brought me here when I was very young to Washington, D.C. And at that time, Georgetown was great. Coach Ewing, Coach Thompson were here. And so I remember, I still have it. And it's funny, I told Dikembe about it, but I wrote Georgetown a letter and Dikembe sent a photo of himself and signed it. And I have it at my house. And now I'm obviously here. So I was a Georgetown fan growing up. I had a t-shirt and a pair of shorts and I would wear it around back home. And so, I said this recently in a post I put about my other mentor, Coach Augie Morelli. And I said, I got a million no's in various forms, but it was well worth the wait for that one yes. And that's how I got to Georgetown, because Augie picked up the phone. So.
No, that's awesome. I didn't realize that it was kind of something that Georgetown was kind of already ingrained in your thought process before you had initially even got there. And it's cool to see how that everything kind of lines up, and you've been in this position for so long, and just kind of seeing how connections, even Iowa connections over in California, kind of transitioned to a position where you had gone to visit before. It's awesome to see how those things line up. And it's nice to be able to have like a mentor like you had with the Raiders coach, where, hey, this is what you should be doing. This is the steps if you want to get to your goal. It's nice to have that. And I know that you guys have done a lot with that, with the internship program and the mentorship over at Georgetown. I mean, me being one of those ones that came out of it, it taught me a great deal, and it really solidified why I wanted to be in the profession. And I think it's a testament for the mentors that you had that gave you guys direction. Now you guys are in the same position and able to pass that down to the next group, the next generation of coaches coming through, which is awesome. You kind of touched on it when you were a personal trainer. You had a lot of hats that you had to wear. And I know from your time at Georgetown, you've gone from an intern position to a full-time position, now to overseeing the whole department. And for over 10 years now, you've been the director, and you've seen a lot of coaches come and go, interns come and go. What's kind of one of the biggest things you learned thus far from your time at Georgetown?
There's definitely a lot, right? And it's going to tie into the personal training thing. And I think this is to life is you have to be adaptable, right? I learned, I'm going to say this, it's not about the program in lowercase. It's about the entire program, right? It's about everything, right? You can't, I guess I've been on a quest to write the perfect program, and that thing doesn't exist, right? It's just like the perfect basketball game. Like Coach Ewing is striving for the perfect basketball game. It actually doesn't exist, right? You can't not turn the ball over. You can't not miss shots. It's just, pitchers can have no hitters, but in basketball, there's no such thing as a perfect game for either side, right? You can have an almost perfect. You can have an almost perfect program. And so I think the one thing I did learn, and that's what, Augie and I, it was such a good relationship because I was adaptable. I could train, men's lacrosse team, and then train a men's crew team, then train the volleyball team, and then train the sailing team, because I could relate to everybody. Because really, if you're passionate about what you do, and as I said, CPR, if you care about the kids, if you're show them the passion and then give them respect, it'll give life to that, program. Then they'll believe anything you do, right?
I like that. And I think that I'm sure you could probably say that your experience in all the sports that you played growing up in, and all the different things you did, all the different positions you kind of had to take hold of as a personal trainer, people are paying you to train you. It's very different from a college setting where you just inherit a bunch of players, and like it or not, they have to do what you say for the most part. I know it gets a little bit tricky at bigger programs where the athletes kind of take precedence over that, and you can kind of get replaced. But in a personal training setting, the client is paying you, and whether or not you get paid is whether you retain them. So you have to be able to kind of manipulate the situation and give them what they're looking for.
Yeah. It's, the sales portion of that. The funny thing is, personal training, I heard this a lot when we had our meetings, and that became I quickly excelled at that personal training thing. One, I was writing everything down on, piece of paper and programming. I was actually programming, where you don't see many personal trainers. I had a stopwatch. Many personal trainers didn't have that. I also showed up on time, and then I gave them programs, right? It was crazy. So I excelled very quickly with just those things. And I had my own fitness center. And, with that, I would always hear the personal trainer say, well, I don't like selling. I don't like sales. I don't like sales. I just want to train. Everything is sales. You're selling everything, Chris Voss, who was a Georgetown professor here, wrote the book, Never Split the Difference. And he was a former FBI negotiator. That's sales, right? that is sales for you. I mean, he had to sell the the hostage, or the person who took the person hostage. He would have to sell him to get out the door, right? And when I would hear that, I'm like, wow, you need to go on a vacation and see the world a little bit more, right? But it's all sales, and it's funny. I really didn't have to sell anything. I didn't have to sell my program. If they didn't want to train with me, they didn't want to train. But I sold a bunch of very large packages, just because people wanted to book me up. So it worked itself.
I like that. I think you even put that in the Hills Book Club. I think I stole that one from there.
Chris? Yeah.
I got that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Great book.
It's a good
book to live by. Yeah. Skills of negotiation. Yep.
Oh yeah. Well, kind of building on that too. I know you're kind of in your dream position, so to speak, right now. If you were to go back and either do something differently or tell first year Coach Michael Hill, what would that be? Any words of advice or wisdom for him that maybe first year coaches could take?
There's a lot. I could go a lot of different directions. I could say clean from the hip, not from the floor. There's like stop running multiple distances for multiple days and multiple distances, stop doing long distance cardio. There's a lot of things, I could say that to change, but to be honest, I feel like all those failures and all of that stuff helped shape me. There's a reason, I've stayed here so long. It is for the people, the good people. And I wasn't necessarily, and Augie said, when you come here, you're not going to be a checker piece or a chess piece. You're actually going to be able to move and manipulate yourself here. And, I guess the one thing I probably would go back and tell myself is don't spend too much time writing those programs. And I hate to beat that over the head, but I used to go home and just, what's this percentage? Put this together. What are these numbers? Is this going to work? And the program was so dense and filled with stuff. And it's like, I just needed to keep it simple. I needed to keep that stuff simple. So that may be just one thing.
I like it. I mean, you summed it up kind of. I've heard you mention it before. It's not about the program. It's about the program. And that kind of sums it up perfectly, where it's more than just that. It's a global approach. It's not just what's put on the training card. It's how you do it. It's the effort, the attitude you approach it. And it's those minor details that actually make up the whole program, not just what you're actually doing and how you're training it. So I like that. So kind of going on, I kind of think of you as kind of, I think Zach Evnesh kind of put it as a strength for life kind of pursuit, where you're training for life is how he kind of defines an athlete. And like, I like to say that's your kind of philosophy, if you'll let me say that. But I think you've always trained with your athletes in mind. Everything you're doing, you're kind of your own test subject. You're a guinea pig. You're writing stuff down. You take meticulous notes all the time. And for me, at least from my observation from when I was an intern and then even now to date, your programming for yourself and what you program for your athlete kind of go hand in hand. How have those two evolved over the career, and how has your coaching influenced what you're training, and how has your training done it vice versa influenced your coaching?
Yeah, that was, I guess, one thing too, Coach Morelli. I mean, I was always training, but there is strength coaches out there that don't train, that never do their own programs. That was one thing Augie would always make time for. Coach Morelli used to make me do his program, or he'd write something on the board and say, this is what we're going to do today. We're going to bench squat or we're going to clean bench squat. Or we're going to do this, or we're going to go on this run or whatever. But I mean, I have it sitting right here, I guess. This is my journal, Assassin's Creed, right? So this is my training journal. Yeah, I mean, you could pick a day, whatever. Kettlebell snatch technique, core, back squatted to a bench. I rode band rows, and then I did some bench press for some reset, and then some body armor, type work. But my program, it's evolved into, I try and keep it simple for myself, but I also go in waves where, I'll try and lift heavy and then I'll back it off a little bit and then come back again and, do some Olympic and then try and get away from it. But I also do a lot of body weight training myself, still try and run a mile as fast as I can, when the zombie apocalypse hits, I still want to be able to run away. Right. So, but right now, currently what I'm doing is Monday, Wednesday, Friday is a more like sports performance type stuff that I would put the athletes through. And then my Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday is a more, put it in layman terms, like a military style training, right? So I'm rucking maybe on a Sunday. Yesterday I walked my treadmill at 10% at 4 miles an hour, right? And then tried to go for about an hour and a half, right? And then Tuesdays, Thursdays, I usually do the push-ups, pull-ups, sit-up stuff, and then run, or just some crazy body weight stuff, just to keep moving. And then Saturdays are kind of like a free day for me. So, yeah. But I constantly, once we get going here, I will be doing my own programs, right? I'll be doing this so I know what they're feeling. Like right now, I just came before as we were talking the podcast, I was testing out, what masks to wear out here dribbling around the basketball. Do we wear one of these masks, or, how are these paper masks feeling? Because if we have to make the athletes or wear them when they're working out, I want to know how it affects them, right? It's going to dehydrate you a little bit faster because you're not breathing in the air and the moisture. There's a lot of different things. Your face is going to heat up. You're going to get itchy when you start to sweat. They're all little things. So I know what's going on. So I shouldn't say I know how that bar feels, but I kind of know how that bar feels or that mask feels. So.
No, that's a great point, because I don't think there should be a strength coach out there that doesn't train in some sort of capacity. And I think that even with the type of training that changes and evolves, or the type of sport you're working with, or the setting you're in, you have to still continue to push it. And I think it really helps with the buy-in and your relatability with the players. And even in a current situation like this, when you're saying with the masks, that's important. That's another fundamental thing that most people would not think about. It's just kind of second nature. Like, well, we have to wear a mask. Well, all right, well, what do we have to do because we have to do this? Like, why don't we prepare a little bit in advance for this so we're not thinking on the fly? Which is, it's something that I really took away from you. Like, besides that, and your consistency and keeping track of your own programs and meticulously writing notes, like that stuff's impressed me. And one of the big things that I like, and I know that your athletes pay attention to, is you're pretty active on social media, and you post a lot of stuff, whether it be your own meals at home, training table meals, when you're on the road, Hill's Book Club is a big one. All those resources and stuff you do. And I know psychologically that benefits your athletes. And I know for a fact that they see those sort of things, not just other coaches. So they pay attention to that stuff. Did you do it on purpose for a reason, or was there anything initially that was behind you starting all this?
So I guess, one, I've always, as you said, I want to be consistent. I want to be the example. I want to show up on time. I want to have the athletes see me when we're on a bus reading a book, because, I love to read, but like also me having them see that all the time. They're like, wait a minute, maybe I should use this time to read a book. Right. So yes, I do want them to see all that stuff. And there is a purpose behind all of that. When we're on the plane, just walk around, ask the guys, what are you guys reading? What book you got? Because our academic coordinator travels with us. They should be reading something. They should be using that time. But there was a kind of a purpose. I sat down and looking at my social media, and I was like, wow, I'm really kind of boring. I'm just kind of throwing this stuff up there. Just like a CrossFit workout, just throwing it up there, seeing if it sticks. Right. So I came with a, kind of a consistent model, with that. So, every Monday I'm trying to post a book. even though I usually am reading 3 or 4 books at a time in different places, but I try and post every Monday, at least one book. I try and post during the week, just something, maybe a throwback Thursday, or like lately I've been posting about my mentors, and then just starting it over again. Maybe I'll have a different picture here and there, but social media is kind of overwhelming. And so for me, I just wanted to stick to those 2 posts, right? Just the simple stuff, just keeping me consistent. And then adding to kind of my story, right? So the food thing started with the athletes. Like the athletes used to take pictures of their food and send it to me. And so I just wanted to reassure them that, hey, this is what I'm eating. There's no fakeness to this. There's no, I'm not in the gym and taking one photo of me and then I walk outside and then I post #grind, right? If I'm doing a workout or I'm doing something, right, it's definitely real, right? I guess I try as much as I can to stick to the story, but the story is really hard. The story is really hard to post. I try and promote those books, but I also try and promote, I think a lot of times, people don't give enough credit as podcasts, right? What other podcasts are you listening to? Where did you get this information? And just kind of highlighting, as you said, those different resources, like what kind of classes am I taking, just to show that, it's not just about, and I throw shoes on there, but whatever. It's not about, fashion and half naked bodies and, hey, I did this hard workout and whatever. Trying to use social media kind of like as a positive thing, I guess, if that makes sense.
No, it makes complete sense. And I really think that it helps the athletes. And I wonder that you being the example and kind of walking the walk, to follow up on that, is that a good conversation starter that you kind of get with the athletes? Like, do they give you any specific feedback or follow up with something like that where you're not directly reaching out to them, but in passing they might see it, or they might come up and talk to you when you're on the road and you're reading?
Oh yeah, I've definitely, the meals I've gotten a lot of, feedback on. The reading, if you go and look at social media posts, I'll put a picture of like myself on there and like some type of selfie and get however many likes. I put a picture of a book, I get maybe 20, right? I put a picture of, the meals are on the story, but I put a picture of shoes, I must get 500 likes, right? So the Jordan shoes that we get, which shows you like kind of the angle I'm trying to, I guess, take. I just throw the shoes on there. I shouldn't say it's a joke, but I put them on there to kind of just highlight some things, because that's what the kids kind of want to see. But actually what I'm trying to promote is a book, right? The Art of Peace, right? Trying to promote, books, or trying to promote just stuff that I'm learning, because I guess when I was, starting out, I was that nerd that was reading the strength and conditioning journals. I mean, I was reading them every single month. I had tons of magazines. I was trying to consume as much as I can. I guess I'm just trying to emulate that with sharing of what I'm doing and what I'm putting out there. It's not to try and gloat and say, hey, I read all these books, I do all this stuff. I would do this regardless. I was doing it before social media, right? Listening to podcasts, I think, are great, because one thing most important about it is you listen. You actually don't talk during podcasts, right? You're listening to a conversation, which you learn obviously by listening, right? And that's what I like. Hey, I wish I was a fly on the wall for this conversation. Well, here it's in a podcast, and put it in. And that's why I would like to take a snapshot and highlight the people who I'm listening to, kind of in the dark matter, right? So, or the dark space in between. And so I usually get about I'd say 1 or 2 podcasts in, maybe even more per week, depending upon what I'm doing. And that's just kind of just listening to the space in between. So.
Yeah, that's been a game changer for me too. I think that there's a lot of dead time where I'd rather be engaged and be able to kind of do something when I'm doing stuff that really doesn't require my attention, like the commute, doing the dishes, anything like that. That's a perfect time where you can kind of drop into a different world. I mean, I enjoy reading, but I think, like, you probably read more since you're on the road all the time. Otherwise, if I'm at home, I have to do something. It's harder to be able to sit down and actually block out everything and get involved in a book. Meanwhile, a podcast, you can throw it on and go for a walk.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and I guess I said this on a couple of other podcasts, but I went through a phase where I read a bunch of strength stuff, and then I was like, I have to get away from this. Like, I have to stop doing this. But my normal routine, I guess, when I said reading 3 or 4 books at a time, is I'll wake up when I get to work, and lately in COVID, it's just been at my house. But normally at work, I have a strength book. Right now, my strength book to me is I'm rereading the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. So I'm rereading this. There's a lot of training tips in here. So I sit down and I normally read about 10 to 20 pages, no more, no less, like just something simple to get my brain going in the morning with work. As I showed, I'm reading it's a quick little handbook read, The Art of Peace. This is a book I'll read at nighttime, right? So this is before I go to bed. And then I also have one in my bathroom, which is like a bathroom reader, which is simple stuff. And that's a book that has something for every single day. It's not, I've read like the 100 Deadly Skills books, both of those. So those are good, like little 1-pagers where you can just open it up. And then all of a sudden, after you've taken, 50 shits and 50 pages or 100 shits for the 100 Deadly Skills. And then, you've gotten through that book. But sometimes I'll grab another one, and kind of cycle through like this. I have another one at home because this one's really small. So, which is called Super Intelligence. But that's just, I just don't pick one book and just read it from, page 1 to page whatever. I'm kind of cycling through that stuff.
No, I like it because you end up kind of chipping away at it. And it speaks to the consistency that, like with your posts and everything, that when you slowly chip away and you're doing 10 or 20 pages a day, and then you turn back and you're finishing a book every week, probably at that rate. And then you can cycle through. I do the same thing. I mean, we're both involved in strength conditioning and training, and you get questions about it, or you're on podcasts like this. So your time is always revolving around some sort of element of sports performance. So it's nice to kind of take a step back and read something fictional, read something just completely out of the normal, because I think most coaches like yourself, you're going to be able to take lessons from it and apply it to your training or apply it to your life in some way. And it's only going to make it better. I imagine you like the old Bruce Lee quote, would take everything in, absorb, take, I don't know how the quote goes, absorb what's worthy, discard what's not,
Absorb what is useful, right? Discard what is useless, right?
Exactly. I knew you knew it.
But he's like, that's why I was rereading it, and I also just reread Martin Rooney's Training for Warriors, right? So that started the whole TFL or TFW stuff. And that's a really good, simple training book back, even before the MMA days, right? When that was first starting out, when there was no octagon, they were training in rings. That's kind of how I chip through that. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's some coaches who obviously just strictly read strength books, but I think there's got to be a separation of kind of like a work home life balance. And I guess that's how I present it in my books. So.
Yeah, I like the balance aspect of it. I think it's helpful. With that, and like your continuing education, all the things that you kind of find important along with your training, like this is all well and good to be able to do at home. You can kind of set it perfectly. Like you got your bathroom book, you got your workbook, you got all this. The Big East basketball travel schedule is grueling, and you guys are on the road for long periods of time, and you're playing a lot of away games against high-level opponents. How does that kind of shift your training philosophy for yourself and what you're doing on the road, and then your roles and trying to keep your players on a good regiment so they can perform?
Yeah. So I guess, we obviously know our travel schedule ahead of time. And, if we're traveling somewhere and we got practice, let's say at 10 to 12, because we got to catch a bus and go somewhere. I'm normally in here out the door at about 5 at my house. I'm normally here and training at 6 a.m. So I will get it in. When I go to the hotels, it's a little bit different. That's kind of when I just lose my mind and do a little bit of distance cardio, right? Or just like walking. I love to just put on some podcast or watch something on Netflix and just put the grade up and just go and just walk and sweat. Sometimes that is good to do and just kind of elongate your training rather than just pigeonhole and doing the same exact thing. So that's what I do is I put someone's at the door right now. So sorry. But so, with the hotel stuff, it's a break from the kind of norm, it's a break from that normal kind of monotony of the regular training. And so with keeping guys involved in those hotels, obviously when we travel, we don't have the starters. They're not in there lifting and smashing weights around, right? It's the rehab guys. It's the guys who maybe won't play, that day. And normally a lot of the coaches are in there working out when we're in those hotels. And so it's not hard. We get into a routine, but I kind of plan it out, right? So if we're going to be gone for those days, those are the days that I'm going to have to move and manipulate my own personal program, right? And at least during the year, I'm trying to do the same thing. I'm trying to lift or do something 6 days a week, right? And at the end of the week, if I've aggregated enough training, I'll take a day off, right? If not, then I won't take a day off.
I like that because you said you embrace the change a little bit when you guys are on the road. Like you get stuck in a routine often when you're at home and it's a comfortable environment. So when you guys are there, like you can break up the monotony a lot and you can actually get those other players involved and give them a little bit more attention, which is great because normally they're the ones that kind of get pushed off to the side. I mean, yeah, it's just the nature of it. You need the starters to perform at their best. You need the bench players to be ready to go, but pushing the starters so that the best players are ready to go. I like that though. Like I said, you've been in your position for a long time. You've been in this career for a long time. You're a master strength conditioning coach. And honestly, your resume alone, if you threw your name in, most people are going to be just dumb to turn that down. And your name carries a lot of weight, but you continue to sharpen the sword all the time. So what kind of challenges you? What makes you continue to want to learn and train yourself despite really the need to?
I guess that just goes back to just this, that little inner self when I was a kid. How did that start? It's kind of training for life. Like I just really like to do it every day. I just don't feel right, taking time off, I guess, in terms of training, right? Just, so, I want to be, I shouldn't say this is my goal, but I want to be, older and see my kids or see my daughters have kids or grandkids. So I want to be around for all that. There's one thing you can't buy, and you can't buy health. You can get close to it. You can buy healthy things, right? But your own personal health, you got to take care of. And so trying to eat right, do the right things, get the right sleep, recover. But that just kind of keeps me going, keeps me motivated. I mean, this strength coach game is a young man's game anyway. So in order to last long, you have to obviously build relationships, build rapport with your athletes, but you got to be in shape, right? You got to be in shape. I think that comes with, gaining respect from your athletes. If they see you doing it, then they're more likely to buy in again. We had a unwritten rule here at Georgetown is if your team had a conditioning test, you should be able to pass it, right? So if your team has a 3-mile test and you're a whatever, team, then can you run it? Or you need to convince your coach not to do that, right? Or why are you doing this? and so I still I still keep myself in shape. I still, shoot around and try and stay mobile, agile and whatnot. So.
And hostile.
Hostile. I wasn't going to say it. You did.
No, I like that. I'm definitely going to steal that. I remember the conditioning tests. Luckily, I think Sean must have forgot about it when I was there, which is just perfect. I wasn't really down to run 300s with lacrosse, so I'm glad I had to pass up on that. Yep. But do you have any favorite resources or anything? Like you mentioned podcasts and all the books and everything you had, but are there any specific coaches or other fellows in the profession that you kind of lean on, or websites that are your go-tos?
Yeah, I mean, like yourself. I mean, the Iron Hoya Georgetown tree strength conditioning tree. So, I still call everyone and try and keep in contact. Obviously, I talk to my mentors. There's some that people who are, close that I'll call when, something happens or I need some advice on something. In terms of podcasts, I kind of have a revolving a door of podcasts, but there's certain ones that I try and stick to and mainstream. But really, I guess resources or websites and things. I've been trying to promote the Santa Fe Institute for a while. I guess SFI, Complexity Explorer. I've been taking some classes with that. And right now I'm taking a course on fractals. So I'm about 9 chapters in, or 9 little blocks in, and I got 2 more left. But I'm always trying to look for. There's tons of free classes online from many different colleges. You can go on, and get have access to free courses online and get those. And I think everybody should take advantage of that and just continue to keep your mind, keep your mind moving and pliable. So, but there's some people, like Carl Johnson, give him a call. Obviously my coworkers here, try and give them a call or speak with them if I have something going on. There's also, as I mentioned, Augie and my other mentors, but like somebody like a Vernon Griffith, I call him all the time and he calls me all the time. Or Ken Wong up in Canada, give him a call, and he's usually got great advice for me. And so those guys I definitely lean on, to get some advice. But a lot of times, in this, just having this, I guess, experience, if you would call that, right? Sometimes I just got to sleep on it. Sometimes, if I got something that's going on or I need some advice, most of the time, write it down on sticky note, and, the next day the answer is going to come to me at some point. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Always trying to find an edge, but I do like that where, I have sticky notes everywhere. And finding the time, because the answer it might just come to you, or you reading something or listening to something. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone kind of giving you the answer. Mm-hmm. By you putting it down and just kind of presenting it and coming and touching back on it when you're at a different state of mind, you might find the answer right there. That's awesome. All right. So we end the show like any good training session with a finisher. So no, not really conditioning, but we got 4 quarters and 4 questions and maybe some good old fashioned basketball overtime.
Yeah.
Hey, you can take as long as you want, or you can answer quick fire. All right. First one, biggest influence in strength conditioning and favorite athlete growing up.
Biggest influence, it has to be Coach Augie Morelli, right? And I think, even obviously me being here at Georgetown, Coach Ewing, but I think everybody grew up loving Michael Jordan, right? And so, yeah. And Rocky, if you called Rocky an athlete, Sylvester Stallone, he would have been a close second, right?
I gotcha. All right, I know you got a lot of obligations and things outside of coaching and training, but what can you be found doing? What are your hobbies when you're not at work?
I guess reading. I mean, so one, I guess, I now have a 6-year-old daughter. And so trying to be present with her, with my family, with my wife, and that's obviously right now and during COVID, and even I shouldn't say before, coming home, work never stops. You're not an hourly employee. I'm not a salary employee. I'm on call for life with this position. And I think that's strength coaches in general. There's no switch to turn off. So you have to have kind of that work home life balance. And so I'm trying to cut that off even more. I had it cut off and then this happened or I had it manageable and then this happened. And then now it's just like all bets are off. We're available all the time, Zoom meetings all the time. And so, trying to do more and more of that and be outside with her and do things and do little projects. And so, yeah.
All right. Here's the $1 million question. If you could pick any other career, if you weren't doing strength conditioning, what would you be doing?
Oh, hands down, I would be working for a 3-letter agency doing something, and you would have never heard of Michael Hill.
That's what I like to hear. All right. Go to training music or PR song. And if this is an ideal training day, what's your post-training meal look like?
I thought you were going to ask for music. Post-training meal.
Music and meal. If it's your ideal training day.
So I normally put in some type of, I'm an old school. I'm an old head. Pandora radio, right? Audio machine, right? Let it go, right? Post-training meal, right, would probably have to be, I'm a huge chips and salsa fan. So if I could throw chips and salsa with some type of protein, maybe some chicken, that's a post-training meal. Big fan of chips and salsa.
Yeah, the chip aficionado.
Yep.
All right, last one, overtime. What's the number one quality of a successful athlete and the number one quality of a successful strength coach?
Wow. I think I'm gonna use a word for the athlete, intention, right? Every time you go and train, what's your intention, right? Is it just to give 80% for that day? Or are you giving 100%? What's your intent? When we're doing sprints, like you can not run those hard, right? And so it's that. For a successful strength coach, I think, I said it earlier with the CPR, but, obviously showing passion, right? And emulating that, right? In all aspects. Because kids can read through that real quick. And I could lump that into care, but if they see that you're passionate about something, if you're talking about this program and you know it inside and out, and you don't have to read it off that card or read it off there, and you know each kid's numbers for that day, right? If they can see that passion in you for it, they're going to buy into it more, right? But it's going to make you successful, right? And sometimes, I'm in the staff meetings and whatnot, and all of a sudden I've talked for, 15, 20 minutes, and I'm like, wait a minute, nobody else has said anything yet. And it's like, because I'm passionate about it, right? I want to get as much out of this as possible. And I think if you're not, this is definitely the wrong profession for you.
I love that. I think athletes can sniff out bullshit real quick. They're the perfect, they identify that stuff right away. And if you come in and you're dragging and you don't know what's going on and you just don't want to be there, there's no way they want to be there. That's awesome to hear. And that's a big reason why, like I said, I lean on you for a lot of stuff. And I really appreciate everything that, from my experience as an intern.
And I'm going to say this for your listeners, right, who are watching this, okay? So the reason, and I take that back to passion, right? The reason Mr. O'Brien is successful, right, this is his packet right here. This is his internship packet when he first came, right? This is a DVD that he sent me, right? A DVD, didn't know who I was, right? He sent this to me, and it had him in front of a whiteboard explaining programs. I can't remember what it was in it now, but it's a list of things, right? He sent me an entire packet, right? This is his resume on here. There was a paper that he gave me, one of his research papers that he sent me. He sent me all of this and was prepared, and that's why we hired him. That's why he came here, right? Because it was like, hey, this kid really cares. He's very passionate. Nobody else has ever sent me a DVD. I've gotten a thumb drive before, but that was, a couple years ago, right? No one took the time to mail that stuff out, right? And so, I keep files on everybody, right? But I kept that one specifically to show to other people who come in who want to do this and want to be passionate about it. It's like, okay, are you to this level yet, right? Well, if you're not to that level, then you should go back and reevaluate yourself, right? You should reevaluate how you're doing this. I must get, at least 2 to 3 emails, right, per day, asking for advice, asking for, do I have a job, asking this. And most of them are just blanket emails, right? And I respond to everybody, nicely. But just the other day, I got hey, coach, do you have some time to talk, blah, blah, blah. And I responded, Mr. Whatever, thank you for this. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for your interest. Here's my cell phone number. Give me a call when you're free. This person actually responded again, just literally from their phone, didn't take the time to actually put any capital letters into their, and now I don't know anything about them, didn't put any capital letters in there, no periods. And it was almost like a text message was sent to me. So if you're going to put that level of care and passion into that, are you going to put your level of care and passion into the weight room? Probably not, right? So you need to emulate, I guess that goes back to being an example, but I'll probably take the time. I'm not going to discredit that person, but that just goes to show you, what, and to sing your praises, Nick, like that goes to show why you've been successful, why you still are doing this, right? So I just wanted to throw that out there. Sorry. That was the second overtime, right? That wasn't really a question. That was more of a statement.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I mean, like I said, I learned a lot from you and the entire staff at Georgetown, and it was by far the single best thing I could have done, like, for my career. And it is the reason why I continue to stay in the career, and what really solidified my rationale to stay in it. I really didn't know what I was doing when I sent that stuff out. Please don't watch the video again. But
he has dreadlocks.
Yeah. But again, like I said, you guys, you and the whole staff there, Sean and Carl, like everybody that was there, all the other interns that were along for the ride, all the athletes, like, you guys really helped me take it to the next level. And remembering that stuff, and you guys taking an opportunity on me is a reason why, like, I want to work with our interns and make sure that I'm giving them a fair chance to actually have a successful career, for the ones that really are passionate and they want to be invested in this program, and they want to be there for the betterment of the athletes for the right reasons. And I can't thank you guys enough for that opportunity to do it. And I'll continue to thank you throughout the rest of my career. And I appreciate you coming on today, Mike. I know you're super busy and you're podcast driven to the ground. So again, it's an honor to have you on as episode number 007.
I love it. Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Take care, Coach.
Yep.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors, Cerberus Strength. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.